Hello and welcome to the podcast. Welcome to Netflix versus Cinema, the podcast that goes to the cinema every week and tries to figure out whether we should have bothered going to the cinema or should just have stayed at home on our sofas. My name is Tosin and I am the host. I'm somewhere in the middle of the United Kingdom, a place called Bromsgrove. And joining me, as always, from the Isle of Wight is Sharon Bolland.
Hello.
Yes, we have no Sean Harris tonight. He is too busy lifting tables, I'm guessing. And joining us from London, our London correspondent, it is Holly Neslane.
No.
Yes, a London and I would like to say Harlan Coben correspondent, because that is kind of like, you know, your wheelhouse. All the Harlan Coben goodness that Netflix is making. So with that being said, let us kick off because what we do on this podcast, if my intro didn't explain it properly, is we go to the cinema each week, see a couple of things, rate them out of 5. We stay at home, see a couple of things, rate them out of 5. If it's a TV series, we have to watch the entire series before we bring it to the table, because it is unfair to bring one good episode of a TV series that might go off the cliff up against a complete film. So, and then we rate them out of 5, put them up against each other, see where money has been better spent this week. What was a good idea and what was a bad one. And so with that in mind, let's kick off with what we have seen. I mean, we have some holdovers from last week, but what have we seen in this week at the cinema?
I can answer that very quickly. I haven't seen anything at the cinema this week. I have got my ticket booked already for the secret screening.
Oh yeah,
next week, but I haven't done any cinema.
Likewise, also booked for that one.
Okay, so this is there's a secret screening, but you have an Odeon card, Holly, and Sharon, you have a Cineworld card.
Yes.
So I am interested.
It may not be the same secret film.
Exactly. I am intrigued to see whether it is actually the same film. I want to see if it's the same. So that's something to keep in mind for next week. But I think, Sharon, I know exactly what happened with you. You saw Sonic the Hedgehog 3, and you went, that's it.
That's it. I need a break. And yeah, there was the I said the lows. Well, it was like the wandering into a strange land with Sonic 3, and then back on familiar territory with Nosferatu. So I did my double bubble last time.
Yeah. No, I just like to. Okay, in my head, my narrative is that you saw Sonic 3 and that's put you off for a while. That's done it for you for a while. All right, College and Holly, what have you seen in the cinema?
I have seen Maria.
Ooh.
Thingy.
Wait, you were booked into like 3 films last week.
Yes, which is why I'm having Baby Girl.
Oh yeah.
And A Real Pain.
Oh, okay, cool, baby. You see, Baby Girl. I was about to book in to see Baby Girl, but it was my birthday and people started calling me, and people who I couldn't say no to their phone calls, like Mum. and so I was like, yes, thank you very much. Okay, Baby Girl's gone. Okay, I'll go see A Real Pain, because that started later. So yeah, but okay, cool. So we have that. Now, how about at home? I know from last week we have the Diplomat season 2 for you, Holly, and you also have, as you are our regular Harlan Coben correspondent, Missing You on Netflix.
Yes.
Sharon, did you have anything?
I had the Netflix film. Is it called The 488?
Yes, the 688, I think.
688. I knew I got it wrong. The 6888. I've seen that on Netflix.
All right,
and I've
cool.
also seen, it's an older film series called The Terror. I finally caught up with it about 5 years after everybody else, but I have seen The Terror as well.
Is that a no? I was thinking of, that's not an ITV thing. I'm thinking of The Tower. The Terror.
No, it's about
is it the South Korean one?
Expedition. No, it's about the frozen Arctic during the 1840s.
Oh, I think Sean spoke about this.
If he's done it, that's fine. I can relax.
All right.
I also watched Getaway at home on Sky Cinema.
Ah, the Nick Frost thing.
Yes.
Okay, cool. All right, and now I'm just going to pick random things and give us a 3 versus 3 battle. 3 cinema, three things at home. And we'll push some things over to next week. We know Mufasa the Lion King is already going to be next week. Maria next week. Baby Girl next week, because I hear that it's weird. And
I won't be around for them next week, though.
Okay, we're getting to the point, because there's so many films being released in January. We might have to do a supplementary recording where we'll just sort of say, so Holly, what are your thoughts? And then just splice it into the show at some point. But anyway, Yeah, okay, we can probably do that. But okay, anyway, let's start off with the holdovers from last week, and let us start off with We Live in Time. So, We Live in Time, this is Florence Pugh, Andrew Garfield. Holly, tell us a little bit more about what this is.
We Live in Time is, I believe, a book adaptation. About the premise is that a couple meet somewhat accidentally when she hits him with her car.
Good pun, Holly.
And they end up falling in love, and which is lovely. All of this is apparent in the trailer.
Yes, the trailer gives you a lot.
It does, and they have a small person, and she gets sick and is clearly, not expected to make it. And the film is about their experience as a couple, a bit about her pleasant but not entirely conventional past, and her job. She is a chef,
A gourmet chef.
Gourmet chef.
Yeah.
And the film charts their experience as a couple in becoming parents, in awaiting death, dealing with mortality.
That's all you really need to know. It's kind of like I mean, story wise, I was speaking to superfan Nina earlier this week because she was saying she was going to see Baby Girl and she was scared, but we were talking about different films, and with We Live in Time, I essentially described this to her as it's pretty much the exact same story as the film Love Story with Ali McGraw and Ryan O'Neal. It's pretty much the exact same through line of what happens in this film. The difference is that this film is told out of order. Like everything in this film is told out of order, and it's told out of order in a way that isn't. They don't signpost it by putting things on the screen by saying, they don't go May 2023 or anything like that. It just starts off and it just jumps around this relationship, and it tells you. So I actually missed the beginning of this because there was a road work, so I don't know exactly what the first scene is, but I know that the first scene you see is not when they meet. When they meet actually comes in about 10 minutes into the film. And then it jumps into, and then all of a sudden, you see them. You see the signpost actually helps is Florence Pugh's haircut, and Florence Pugh's hair at different points tells you, oh, this is different. This is different. Andrew Garfield pretty much looks the same throughout the entire film. I mean, I think at one point maybe he wears glasses, but apart from that,
yes. But I'm not sure that that's time indicative so much as circumstance indicative.
Yeah. But apart from that, he looks the same throughout. But it's Florence Pugh, and I think with that, it's just a very well told romance movie. It's the fact that she grows ill and everything like that. You kind of know where this is going. You kind of know what's going to happen. I know that there's been some controversy about it because they say that they describe her as having, was it stage 3 or stage 4 ovarian cancer, which is quite advanced. And so she has to go through this aggressive treatment and everything. But I was watching the film and I was watching the film and look, based on how she looked and everything, I was like, oh, she mustn't be that sick then. I mean, because it doesn't seem to affect her that much. She hasn't changed the way she looks or anything like that. And then after thinking that, watching the film, I hear afterwards that people said, oh yeah, and there is some controversy because people are saying it kind of like makes the experience or the physical transformation of going through cancer look a lot more sunshine and roses than it actually is. And but apart from that, I think the performances are good. I think it's a really well told thing. I think jumping around in time tells you a little bit about their story because like they have like, I think like for instance there's a scene because Holly spoke about them having a kid, and there's a scene of them with a kid right next to a scene of her saying I never want to have kids, and it's kind of and I think it adds something to the film. It makes it better, but I think the main thing is the performances. It really is, I would say Florence Pugh is the main character, and Andrew Garfield is in every sense of the word a supporting character in this film. This film is about what Florence Pugh's character Almut wants, what she wants, how she goes about it, and he's just there to sort of like help along. There was a time there was a bit of which I was thinking is a little bit like in this film. Do you understand the term manic pixie dream girl?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there was a bit where it felt a little bit like they taken the manic pixie dream girl and made her the main character in the film, and there was an element of that for me where I was like, oh, is that what they're doing here and everything like that? And then you have like the unremarkable man who usually changes the manic pixie dream girl now in the supporting role. I'm not sure if that's what they were trying to do, but it came across a bit like that. But I mean, I've spoken for a while now, so Holly, you say something else.
No, to me, it was very well acted.
Yes.
It was very well shot.
Mm-hmm.
One of my cats is apparently playing with the carpet.
Mm-hmm.
It was well constructed. It was well shot, but fundamentally, it was I'm going to say, a not terribly interesting tragedy rom-com.
Yeah, I mean, if it had been told linearly, I feel like we've seen this a lot of times. We've seen this story a lot of times.
If it was told linearly, I would have been asleep. It's cinema buddy Steph did not like it. She was very disappointed by it. I had damp eyes at one point, but we do know that I will cry at anything, so that's not really indicative of much. But I did think it was very well put together. What I found interesting as well is that I didn't necessarily like the characters. And I'm not sure. I'm not sure whether or not you were meant to like them, but it's.
That came across to me as in they were just presenting new people. They were trying to present people as opposed to present sort of like, romance movie archetypes. So which means that there are things about where you think, oh, for goodness sake, how stupid are you? There's one line reading that Andrew Garfield gives. It has to do with Weetabix that I was so annoyed by. I was like, why are you taking so long to say this line? Just spit it out. What the heck is wrong with you? But I personally, if I was going for a star rating, I think round about a 3, maybe sneaking into a 4, but it's on that borderline. But I think if I had to, I think I'll probably give it a 3.
Middle of the road 3.
Yeah.
I thought it was a nicely put together film with a good cast who were not they were good, but they didn't it wasn't a spectacular performance by either of them, because we've seen them be so amazing in other things. But they did a perfectly decent job of a perfectly reasonable story that was not terribly remarkable. And it was if all you're after in life is a slightly interestingly told tragedy rom-com in a bit of a different order, and that gives you a little bit of thinking, then it is an enjoyable film to watch.
And as you said, misty eyes at some point.
Absolutely. I would.
And I have to say, with all that being said, the scene in the petrol station
is very fun.
The scene in the petrol station, I think, is an all-timer. I think like the scene in the petrol station, if there's anything that stands out from this film, it's the scene in the petrol station.
But it left me with so many questions. So many. Which
let me guess. Now. What happened with that car that you left on the street?
Yes. Yes.
I did have that question.
It bothered me intensely. Yeah. What happened?
Yeah, what happened to that car? Because
what were the impact on the other people?
Because there was no way around that car. I know exactly what you mean, because I was having the same questions myself.
I was like, you people are selfish.
As he said, they're not particularly likable, but it's also one of those films.
It was a good film. It was a watchable film. If somebody were looking for a sort of romancy, sad film to watch, I would say absolutely go for it. If you're looking for something that's going to be,
game changing.
This is not your film, but not every film needs to be that.
Yeah, I agree. Although it's one of those films that makes London look really good, like makes London look really romantic, especially the Herne Hill area. A bit like there's this and there's Rye Lane. I don't know if you guys have seen Rye Lane, And Rye Lane,
No.
Rye Lane does that for Peckham. It gives London the before sunrise sort of treatment, and you just kind of go, yeah, maybe London's not that bad. Yeah, maybe I should. Yeah, but anyway, that is that for 3 stars for We Live in Time. And now we are going to go over to Netflix and Friends, an actual Netflix, and we're going to talk about The Diplomat Season 2. Now, all I know about this is well, I think this is the show that Netflix have described as a gourmet hamburger. That it's nice, it's flashy, it has Kerry Russell, some political shenanigans, might be a bit far-fetched, but hey, look, don't worry, it's cool. You can eat it like it's an amuse-bouche almost kind of thing. But Holly, what is this? Is that true? What's this like?
Okay, so this is series 2 of a somewhat ridiculous series about a woman who finds herself and I believe she was previously CIA, finds herself in series 1, posted to as the ambassador, the American ambassador to London, which is a diplomatic appointment, a political appointment rather than a career career diplomat one. And the reason for this is that the incumbent president is potentially looking for a new vice president, and she needs some political creds apart from being this marvelously appreciated clever woman who doesn't like being well put together and likes wearing comfortable trousers and her hair scrunched back in a ponytail sort of thing.
Yeah.
And she is married to
Rufus Sewell.
Rufus Sewell, thank you, who is this rather wonderful former diplomat himself, who is charismatic and charming, and the previous ambassador to London, and is just delightful.
To England, I would guess.
Yes.
All right, cool, okay.
Yes, London, UK, not London, Ontario.
Yeah. Just when you said to London, I was like, do they have an ambassador to just London, or is it for the entire country?
Well, it's technically to the Court of St. James.
Oh, really?
That is the title, is the
Okay,
ambassador
cool.
of St. James. Series 1, she becomes a little too closely involved with the British Foreign Secretary for reasons. At the beginning of series 2, I literally don't remember what happened in the majority of series 1. At the beginning of series 2, there are various political things going on, questions about whether or not she really does wish to become vice president. She swans around being diplomatic and doing diplomatic-y things that bear very little resemblance to any form of actual diplomatic-y things.
Okay, but let's jump to, did you like it?
It was a thoroughly watchable series. Alison Janney shows up as the incumbent vice president.
Yeah.
And that frankly makes anything watchable because I love Alison Janney. What do I know what happened in the series? I haven't the faintest idea. I basically cannot remember the vast majority of the storyline. There's a lot of political shenanigans and nonsense and who did or did not do things, know things, blah, 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 blah. Watchable nonsense. Would recommend if you have time on your hands and want something that is intellectual, hot chocolate with marshmallows. It's it's comfort viewing with no substance, no intellectual nutritional value. It brings nothing to the world, and nor does it need to.
But
it's a lovely way of spending a couple of afternoons sitting on the sofa, not exercising your brain.
But I hear it's extremely Moorish. That's the thing about it.
It is absolutely Moorish, but I also found I didn't care. And that's fine too. I was not emotionally invested in it. I did want to find out what was going to happen, but I was not attached to the outcome.
I'm just imagining Holly watching it going, meh, give me another one. Meh, give me another one.
Well, the thing is, you want to find out. You don't care what it is that happened, but you want to know what it is that's going to happen.
You want to know what it is that's going to happen, and then you immediately forget it the second you find out.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
I remember the very end of the series, and I remember occasional points within it, but much of it, who knows?
yeah,
It might have happened.
but
She got some nice suits, and that was good. And there's some various romance bits in and around the edges and marital problems and all sorts. It's all very,
Is Rufus Sewell still in it?
very, he is still in it. So yes, so Rufus Sewell continues to be present.
you
And
know,
Rufus Sewell will be returning for season 3, no doubt.
Because I think sometimes he's just worth the watch, isn't he?
you know, the funny thing is, like, when Holly said, "Oh yeah, Rufus Sewell," I did look, and I did expect, and I did look, and I was not disappointed to see that Sharon's ears pricked up.
I went, oh,
It's like, oh, Rufus Sewell. It's like, Rufus Sewell. Any appearances by Mads Mikkelsen by any chance? Is this
I'm afraid not.
Danish Prime Minister?
that'd be nice.
Not
Yeah,
thus far.
This is funny because this show it feels like a Shonda Rhimes show without
Yeah.
being a Shonda Rhimes show. That's the thing that I found. It's popcorn. It's popcorn.
Yeah.
It does nothing for you. Just but come back because you remember you had a good time. But anyway, how many stars would you give the Diplomat season 2?
3.
3 stars for the Diplomat season 2.
Middle of the road, run of the mill, enjoyable sofa watch.
All right, but it sounds like you enjoyed it better more than We Live in Time.
Um, Possibly a bit more,
Okay.
but no, probably not. Probably
Okay.
very
All right.
similar.
Good old middle of the road 3. Nothing wrong with being middle of the road. All right, now we go back to cinema, and we are going to talk about A Real Pain. This is written by and directed and starring Jesse Eisenberg. And so this is a film with Jesse Eisenberg and Kieran Culkin, and they play a couple of cousins in America of Polish ancestry. So their grandmother was their shared grandmother was Polish, and she was a Holocaust survivor, and she's recently died. And when the film first kicks off, you meet Jason Eisenberg playing a Jason Eisenberg type character. So essentially, yeah, leaving his house, has like a shirt that's halfway buttoned up, has a backpack, has a baseball hat, is phoning up he's neurotically phoning up his cousin to see whether his cousin is going to be at the airport because, you have to check in about 3 times and he leaves about 15 different voicemails before he actually gets to the airport to tell his cousin. It's kind of like, oh yeah, there's traffic. Just so you want to know, you want to leave a little bit early, there's traffic. Oh yeah, the traffic's cleared up. I'm going to be there earlier than I thought. That kind of thing. So far, very much what you've seen from Jesse Eisenberg. Then you get to the airport and you meet his cousin, Kieran Culkin, who is Benji. And his cousin is like the opposite end of the scale. So Jason Eisenberg is very Jason Eisenberg. Kieran Culkin is very, if you've seen Succession, he is very, what's his name of that character in that show? Roman. Is he? No. Yeah,
Yes.
he's Roman. He is Roman, yeah. Yeah, Roman Roy. He's very, very much like that. So he's gregarious, he's big, he's loud, he sort of like says things, he insults people, but he does it in a sort of like a jokey way, and he kind of gets away with it because he's kind of cheeky, chappy kind of guy. And you have this whole thing where they become this odd couple because they are going to Poland because they have booked on a sort of like a heritage tour because they want to get closer to their grandmother who left Poland obviously, well, during the Second World War, ended up in America, and they never really knew about that part of her life. So they want to go back and they wanted to go and trace her steps, almost to say, in Poland and sort of connect to that part of their heritage. And it reminded me a little bit of a film from Liev Schreiber starring Elijah Wood called, oh good lord, the name of it just went out of my head. I'll remember it in a second. But it was a very similar thing, but with Ukraine. But then it just becomes an odd couple thing. They meet their tour group, which is led by Will Sharp, who some people might recognize from The White Lotus, or I personally recognize him from a TV show called Defending the Guilty, which got cancelled during COVID. I only had 1 season. Find it on BBC. It's actually I thought it was really, really good. So he plays the tour guide, who is a non-Jewish man from his accent, I would say Yorkshire. He's a non-Jewish English man who, but he goes around and he's studying all these things to tell him all about like the Jewish history of Poland, the Jewish history of Warsaw, and all that. And it's about them reconnecting because it comes to the fact that they haven't met with each other for a while. It's a kind of film where a lot of reviews will probably use the words generational trauma in them because it's about how they deal with this, how they deal with the past, how they reconnect to each other, and how they deal with the fact that, like, one of them is just kind of like uptight, is the responsible one of them is the loose cannon that goes around everywhere. But as it goes along, I think one of the things, because this could be a very one note film, just from that description you could feel like you've already seen the film. What comes up is that there's these little wrinkles about the characters, and there's this little unexpectedly effective emotional beats that come up where you find out things about Benji, or find out things about David, or David expresses, as someone who's really, really buttoned up, has a moment where he actually expresses some real emotion and is actually quite effective. And then you have Benji, who is all emotion, quite frankly. He's sort of like all emotion, no filter. And then he has a moment of restraint that shows that there's a little bit more going on beneath the surface. And I think that that's what makes this film work, is the interplay between Jesse Eisenberg and Kieran Culkin. Those two and the odd couple thing, it makes it work. And then you have other bits, which it's trying to deal with. I feel like it's trying to deal with like heavy topics. Like there's a bit where they go to a Holocaust, they go to a concentration camp. They go to a concentration camp and they try and do it, but it's almost kind of say that's not the point of the film, but it does inform the characters in the film. And I thought it was well observed. There's something that they do when they go when they when they go on the pilgrimage to their grandmother's house, to the last place she lived in Poland before she left and went to America. There's something that they do that just made me think a little bit like what you were saying about We Live in Time. I was like, oh my God, how selfish is that? That's so self-centered. Only an American would go to somebody else's country and feel like they could do that. So, and I was so happy when a character shows up and tells them exactly that. I was like, yes, thank you, Jesse Eisenberg, for at least being observant. But anyway, I've talked too long. Holly, what did you think?
I thought very much the same. I thought Kieran Culkin was beyond perfect for the part. I don't think anybody else could have played that part.
Yeah.
It was just, it must have been written for him.
Apparently he pretty much dropped out about 2 weeks before they were supposed to start shooting because he didn't think he could do it. He didn't think it was right for him. And Emma Stone, who is one of the producers of the film, talked him down from a ledge and said, "No, you should do it." And now he's winning all the awards.
Because he was, I thought, superb. Um, it was a very well constructed film. I gather it was also possibly the only film that's ever been allowed to film in an actual concentration camp.
I mean, they do have
Very
things
in Poland anyway.
yeah. I mean, I think they do have things at the beginning where they say like the Warsaw Film Council was involved in this.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be
It's
surprised.
yeah, and it was done through very complicated negotiation and is almost unheard of, and was agreed specifically because of how they would handle
Yeah.
it and the fact that it wasn't a film about glorifying or
It's
the
handled
Holocaust.
it's
It was,
handled very sensitively.
and it's a really beautifully shot film.
Mm,
There's a particular scene, well, it's two scenes that involve driving across the Polish countryside, and they so perfectly capture that countryside and a movement in and out, and the transitions. It is a really beautifully done film.
yeah. Yeah, I would
Uh,
agree.
it is a delight to watch. Yeah, I
Quiet,
thought it was
Oscar
great.
fanfare.
Yeah, I thought they did a really, really good job of it. I thought, well scripted. I also had Jennifer Grey in it,
It did.
which was, yes,
It's kind
reasonably
of
prominently, and I had no idea it was her.
well, that's the problem with. I mean, Jennifer Grey has very well documented, I would say, botched plastic surgery, which
Yeah,
she
nobody
looks.
puts baby in a corner because you
Yeah,
wouldn't know if it was baby anymore.
you wouldn't have a
Yeah,
clue that it was baby, like because I mean, my wife didn't know anything about that. She didn't know anything about, like, Jennifer Grey and so I showed her a picture of Jennifer Grey in Dirty Dancing. I showed her a picture of Jennifer Grey
Now,
after her
yeah.
surgeries, and she was like, "That is not the same person." and,
You really have to
and
look at her to see the sort of the eyes. It's like, is it her?
Yeah, you have to look at the
Yeah,
eyes
the eyes are the
and
same, but
I'll tell you there's some times when I've looked and looked and looked and I have become convinced that somebody got rid of Jennifer Grey and just replaced it with a different person because because it and she says it herself. She says it like, it was a mistake and that she says her own family didn't recognize her and then it kind of I won't say it ruined, but it definitely slowed her career down because everybody wanted to cast that woman in Dirty Dancing and then she would show up and they'd be like, "Where is she?" And, yeah, but yeah, it's yeah, Jennifer Grey, isn't it? And one of the things that as well, I quite like the tour group. I love the fact that they have the okay because this is a film that could very easily, like, what they were talking about filming the concentration camp, it could very easily be trauma exploitation. It could very be like, Jewish trauma exploitation. And that's the kind of film that I've kind of had enough of. I feel like there's enough of it's kind of like when you have a film that focuses on slavery. And I'm like, look, you have to give me something else. You just can't show me a film that says, "Ooh, slavery was bad, wasn't it? Oh, let's watch some bad people get brutalized." You can't just give me that. And I think I was worried that this film would be a bit like that. And then when they meet the tour group, and then you find that there is actually a Rwandan as part of the tour group who survived the genocide in Rwanda, but when he got to Winnipeg, converted to Judaism because he found some solace within the religion. I was like, now this is different. I was like, this is a and he isn't just window dressing as well. He has a significant part to play. He has like significant reams of dialogue, and I was just kind of like, oh my God, just hearing that accent in a film like this is yes. So yeah, I quite like this film. I would give it a 4 out of 5.
I would also give it a 4 out of 5.
Yeah.
It is a very solid 4. This will sound bad that was kind of I expected it to be better, and I can't tell you how or why. Simply because
That
in my head it was going to be so blow away amazing, and it was still really, really good. But I had it on a higher pedestal in my head than it could
okay.
realistically have achieved.
I don't know about pedestal, but I agree with you 100%. I know what you mean. I was expecting it to be better, especially because of a lot of the buzz it's been getting and a lot of the
Yeah.
chat about it. I was expecting it to be better, and in the end, I was
I
like,
thought it would
okay,
be
oh,
this
cool.
year's I thought it'd be this year's The Holdovers,
Yeah,
and it didn't do that. But
it's
then
it's it's
why should
very
it have
good,
been
if not
trying to do the
excellent.
same?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Would
very, very
thoroughly
good.
not recommend.
It's very, very good. It's just not excellent.
Yeah.
It's a bit like I was watching. Okay, total. I mean, Sean's not even here, and I'm still going off on tangents. So total tangent. I was watching Toy Story 4 over the Christmas period, and Toy Story 4 is a film that a lot of people quibble about. Like, should this film exist? Should this film exist? Toy Story 4 should it exist? Because Toy Story 3 was just Toy Story 3 is excellent, and I was watching Toy Story 4 going, this is actually a very, very good film. The only problem Toy Story 4 has is that Toy Story 3 exists. And that's kind of like what you're sort of saying. This is a very good film. It's just not excellent. But
Yeah.
anyway, yeah, we will move on and we will go over to Netflix and we are going to talk about the 6888. When I say we, I mean Sharon. Sharon, this is what you
Okay.
came here for. You have to talk about the six. You sat down there patiently listening, and it's now time to talk about the 6888. So please go.
Okay. The 6888. I always get the name wrong. I'm sorry. Is a Netflix film. It is set in the Second World War, and it is about a this company, the 6888, which is a don't know what the hell they describe it on there, but I don't want to use the archaic language, but it's basically a unit of black women.
Yes.
How these women who have felt the call to sort of do war work through whatever circumstances. Sometimes it's one of them, it's because she's just wants to serve her country. Others, they want to do it because it's like it gets them out of their lives because they've sort of been working menial jobs and they see it's an opportunity to sort of do something different to serve their country and have a bit of adventure. Maybe meet some men also in this armed forces. And for another one, it's because she wants answers. The love of her life has gone into the forces, and she's just lost track of what's happened to him. He's missing, presumed dead, but she doesn't know that, and so she wants answers, and she wants to find a way of fulfilling the promise that that was in their relationship. So there's all these women come from a different path, but they're all women who are from the Black background. They have different social economic backgrounds. Some of them are very well educated, they're college educated. Others are just ordinary girls who are just working sort of as maids and as waitresses and things. So they've all joined up, and they find more or less immediately that they are treated differently. That even though they've trained and they've qualified, they're not being deployed, they're not being used, they haven't left America, and they're somehow regarded as being, they want them there, but they don't know what to do with them. The army says, like, it wants to boast that they've got this black unit of women soldiers, but they just don't know what to do with them. And then they have discovered there is a crisis in the postal system within the army, that mail is not being taken from the front line and delivered to the home, and home mail is not actually been delivered to the troops. And they've had this enormous backlog that amounts to something like 17 million pieces of mail that feels like hangars, aircraft hangars in these sacks. And these are lifelines to the soldiers, and they're lifelines to the families left behind. And their commanding officer has been given the job of sorting this out, but they've almost been like set up to fail. It's like an impossible task. So who would you give an impossible task to? The people who have basically, who you think is assumed that because every other unit's failed, you've got to give it to someone, because the president is pestering them about it, because the first lady is pestering people about it, because mothers and sweethearts have been saying, like, I've not heard from my son for 3 years and I'm desperate to hear what's happening to them. And so the pressure's been put on the army. So they say, well, who can we give it to? Oh, just give it to them. And so these women are then shipped out to Britain, and they go by sea, unescorted, cross the North Atlantic in a civilian boat. So again, not treated, they would treat combat troops or even any other administrative troops. They're shipped out, and they arrive in Scotland in the sort of the middle of winter, freezing cold, and they're told they've got to march to their accommodation, and their accommodation is a requisitioned school. If anyone in this country, when you hear the sort of Scottish boarding school, you probably have an idea of what they walk into. These sort of glacial, inhospitable, sort of quite primitive conditions, which toughen up the young men of this country. And that's what they were sent to do for years, but maybe not quite what some sort of southern women are expecting when they come to serve their countries. So they have this mammoth task of, like, their accommodations are just not fit for purpose, so they have to sort of get in there and sort it out. And then this task of, like, sorting out the mail, when none of the previous systems that have been set up are actually working. So they have to like identify, solve problems, and then sort of fight for their place. And that's what you do. You see it through the eyes of the different women in this unit and their commanding officer, and then how some of the army and some of the other people involved, some of the families who are waiting for mail, you get to see these different lives.
All right. So when I first heard about this film sounded to me like, it has a lot of the trappings of Oscar bait. Of Oscar bait. Like it looked like, if you remember the film Hidden Figures from a couple of years ago, it looked a little bit like Hidden Figures. There
are nods to that, I think.
All right, cool. So, but then I saw it was directed by Tyler Perry, and I'm like, okay, in that case, I don't think it's Oscar bait, because Tyler Perry is very much a populist filmmaker. I don't think he particularly cares about awards. So, what would you say on that? Like, how does the film come across as worthy, or what is it?
Yeah, I would say that what I was thinking of. Yeah, when you think of it, yes, it's. I think it's done to entertain, to outrage, but I think effectively it's like a piece of entertainment. And so you follow these stories through, like you follow one particular woman through her story of, basically wants to find out what the love of her life is, and every now and then he wrote her a letter. As it turned out, it's not really a spoiler, because it's that sort of film where you can't really spoil it. You go into it knowing what you're going to get. But anyway, his last letter, you basically chart it through the journey as they're unraveling this problem. You see his letter at different stages, that it was, she hadn't heard from him, and his last letter has been trapped in this mail system,
Mm.
and she's been left in this limbo because she doesn't know what he was thinking of about her before
Yeah.
the end of his mission. So, no, I liked it. Again, I thought sometimes it's a bit sentimental, but I think this is the sort of film that appeals to that sort of sentimental aspect of it. My only criticism is because it's an American film, it's very self-contained. It's all about it's only with it. You only see it through the window of what they see. So you only see it through the eyes of the women there.
Yeah.
When you actually look, because I'm always curious about true stories, how true are they? And when you read some of the accounts of some of the women, they actually were quite well received by the local communities. They were invited to people's homes. They went to the people, got to know them, people welcomed them, and a lot of them were saying like they were treated much better in Scotland than they were at home in some of their circumstances.
Yeah.
But you don't see any of that. You don't see them
Because
outside of the confines of their barracks, basically. So you never see the interactions with the locals. You never see the interactions with the wider community.
well,
Which
if
I
it is,
think would have been interesting for me.
yeah, I always find that with films like this, people make this film and there's a certain story they want to tell, and there's a very certain thing they want to go in, and they want to, and so when you see this thing and you think, oh yeah, you're going to look at a whole bunch of black women who were serving the army during World War II. Straight away, you think, right, cool, racism. This is a racism story.
There's a lot of racism in it.
Yeah, and so if that's the case, if that's a racism story, you want to focus on the fact that it's a racism story, and you want to cut out anything that detracts from the racism story. So
Yeah.
I always find these sort of films as a good, they're like a good, they because they're good to highlight an area that you don't know about. Then you can go and like you have done, Sharon, do your own research and find out. So they're just kind of like oh, by the way, this happened, and then you go and find out exactly what happened. But don't go to them and expect historical fidelity.
Yeah. And so they do say this is, these are real women. Some of them they have, this is real woman, and you get pictures of the real person and their lives, and you think, well, that would have. But yeah, I thought on the whole, it was entertaining. It was, so yeah, and I know because I didn't realise there was, sort of black women posted in Britain during the Second World War.
Yeah.
Obviously there were black men posted in this country with different the pioneer corps and different other things. Not that I don't think they were pioneers, but sorry, excuse me if that's not the right term. But yeah, I was aware that there were black troops based in this country. Quite well, that's quite well known here.
Yeah.
But I didn't know this story at all, so I thought that was interesting. I think on the whole, yeah, I liked it. I spoke to some of my friends at work, said, "Oh, did you see this film over Christmas?" And I was like, "Well, yes, I did actually." And said, "Well, we really liked it." So I think there's a lot to like about it. I think it wouldn't be any more than a 3 for me, but I thought it was entertaining, quite well acted. The characters were engaging enough that you think, actually, if I find any more, I'd like to find out a bit more about them, which is what I did.
Yeah.
And it opens a sort of a window on the Second World War that I wasn't aware of. So for me, I enjoyed it. Would recommend people watching it, but I probably wouldn't give it more than a 3 in terms of like artistic merit. But it's certainly entertaining, for what it was. But yeah, it's worth checking out.
All right, so 3 stars for the 688, and yes, the film I was thinking about that A Real Pain reminded me of that about American person going back to connect with like. Heritage that due to World War II was Everything is Illuminated, directed by Liev Schreiber, starring Elijah Wood. But that's set in Ukraine. But yeah, Everything is Illuminated. All right, now we are going to go back to cinema. And Holly, you have a choice here because you are going to be doing a lot of talking. If so, you can either do the next cinema film and the next Netflix thing, or I can push Missing You to next week and I can do something else for or when you're next on, shall I say, and I can do something else for Netflix, for the Netflix side. What do you think?
Something else for Netflix.
Cool. Then in that case, Holly, tell us about Nightbitch, a film that you went. This is a film that each time I say it, I'm like, oh, can I say that? I guess you can say that. I guess it's what the film's called. I guess it's what the film's called. And when you hear about what the thing is about, it's actually just a description. So tell us about Nightbitch, a film that you saw and you sent a message to our WhatsApp group saying this film needs to be discussed.
Does very much need to be discussed. So, Nightbitch, a film starring Amy Adams as Mother. She is an artist who has had a child with her probably management consultant husband who travels a lot, and she has decided to be they decided that she would be, of her choice, that she would be a stay-at-home mum. And
But does he work for Weetabix? This is the real
he does
question.
not work for Weetabix, I'm afraid. It is a sadness. We do not know who he works for, but we do know that he travels away every week.
Yeah.
And he is collected in a taxi, and he returns in a taxi, and she spends her week at home with her child, and taking child to baby sing-along and all of those other really exciting mother and baby things that are out there. And I can say this in a thoroughly deadpan way, having never had to go to one myself, and I hope it stays that way.
I've been to one with my nephew when he was very little.
That's
I've been to that. I've had that.
I've been to them, and and when you're dealing with a small child, they're a bit of a lifeline.
Yes, I know people who have been grateful for them and people who have wished that they could burn their own eyes out rather than have to.
Yes.
She is of the burn your own eyes out view. She gets no joy from it. She does not, in fact, enjoy being a stay-at-home mother. She finds her son perfectly enjoyable and interesting, but finds the entire experience disconnecting and not a thing of happiness. She doesn't have any friends, any of the in similar circumstances. Her relationships with her old friends are not in a good place because they have moved in different directions and they can't relate to her and she can't really relate to what they're doing.
Yeah.
And she finds herself slightly losing the plot, and finds via this that she realizes, she starts having vivid dreams about turning into a dog. And it slowly dawns upon her that this is in fact happening, and it's not a dream, and that at night she becomes a dog. And the neighborhood dogs come and leave, dead things on their doorstep. When she is, during the day, some of the local dogs come and watch her intently and follow her around. And it's at night she runs forth free as a very beautiful looking collie, as you do.
You begin to feel slightly uncomfortable with that idea. For some reason.
It is very odd, and she realizes somehow she comes in contact with a book that makes her connect with the idea of well, it's not animalism, but the connections between women and spirit animals and stuff.
Yeah.
And she addresses in her life her relationship with her choices as a woman in having been chosen to step away from her art, which is a passion to her, and focus her life on her child, a life that does not,
it's not rewarding.
Isn't rewarding.
Yeah.
And doesn't bring her joy. And she realizes that she connects better with her child when they both act like dogs. It's a really well put together, really thought-provoking film. And I watched it as the position of a woman who doesn't have children. And so much of it is in some ways alien. So I'd be very interested to know what the views of a mother would be, and of people who have different views of women's different views of having children or not having children. But I would also be interested in the view of a man watching it, and whether or not it can have the same sorts of resonance about expectations of women and what women are asked to do. It's not necessarily asked to do by people who aren't themselves, which is one of the interesting twists as well, is, what does one bring upon oneself out of choice, rightly or wrongly?
Well,
it's so well put together. It's completely unhinged.
This is a film I am so sad. It's one of those films that has not had as wide or as long a release as I would like. And it's
brilliant.
Well, you see, this is because I really wanted to watch this film because obviously is the kind of film I want my wife to watch, because it might be the kind of thing where I'll be like,
Yes.
so was it like that, and did you just not tell me? It's just that kind of thing. And it's so, but it's not. Well, I've been trying to find it around me. It was around. It was near me. I think it was before Christmas. It was out for about a week, and it's disappeared, and I can't find it anywhere to watch. So I'm left waiting until hopefully it shows up on some streaming site, not Disney Plus, because Disney Plus I've just done a Netflix, and I've started doing the whole household sharing thing where you can't share your password with somebody who doesn't live with you. So, oh, good Lord, I mean, I'm so annoyed. But yeah, but I'm left to just wait until it comes onto one of these things to watch it, because I really want to watch this. I want to see what he has to say. I think it might be enlightening. I feel like even as a man, I still feel as if that there might be some things I would recognize and I would identify with in this film.
I think so.
Yeah, and I would just like to say. But anyway, how many stars would you give Nightbitch?
4.
4 stars.
It's a really good. I can't quite tell you why I won't give it a 5, because I don't quite know. But I really liked it. I thought it was such a good film.
I really want to see it, because it's directed by Marielle Heller, and I don't think she's done anything I haven't liked. She did Can You Ever Forgive Me? She did A Good Day in the Neighborhood, the Mr. Rogers film, and this is a film. This is a film I want to see. So please, streaming platform, pick it up. Not Disney Plus, but what are the other ones?
Nutty film, so worth watching. People should watch it, but be prepared to be a little bit confused, bemused, slightly weirded out, possibly occasionally very slightly, not massively, but slightly grossed out. And that's okay.
Sorry, yeah, I'm just sort of seeing because I've got a live stream of my daughters watching TV. At least that's what it was. It has not turned into a live stream of my wife telling my daughter off for spilling something on the floor. So I am glad I'm not my daughter right now. So, anyway,
well, that will teach her to spill things on the floor.
That will teach her. Well, it won't. But you hope she'll learn something.
We can pretend.
We can hope she'll learn something. All right, cool. So let's go on to the final thing we're going to talk about on Netflix and Friends this week, and I'm going to talk about Doom Patrol on ITVX. And Doom Patrol, this is a show, it's finished now. It's had about 5 seasons, I think, and when it was originally released, because it's a comic book film, it's a comic book TV show. When it was originally released, it was put in a place where, from my point of view, you just couldn't watch it. I kept hearing about this show, but couldn't watch it anywhere, because it was on DC while they were trying to catch up with Marvel. They essentially started up their own, from what I can understand, their own streaming platform called DC Universe. So you had to go and get another streaming platform just to watch this show. And I was like, that doesn't make any sense. And then it showed up on HBO Max in the US, but I don't really think it's been anywhere on TV here. I couldn't find it. But now ITVX have been performing a service which they have seemed to be going around and grabbing all these things that were on other streaming platforms that were difficult to grab a hold of, and they're like, ta-da, we've got it. And ITVX brought Doom Patrol, and I watched the first season of it, and I am so thankful that they got this show, because honestly, this is a comic book show almost for people who do not like comic books, because it's a comic book show that knows it's a comic book show, knows that it has all these pitfalls it could fall into. The first season has a narrator played by Alan Tudyk, which immediately gives it extra points. Because he is amazing, and he plays this character called Mr. Nobody, who during the Second World War goes and gets infused with powers because he wants to be something, and then so he is aware of everything that's going on, and he continually talks about this show, and he says, "This is what you want, isn't it? You want some big final confrontation? Well, here it comes!" and he's commenting the whole way through about what this is. And Doom Patrol is pretty much like, it is arguable that they are what Marvel ripped off to make the X-Men. So you meet all these different characters, and all these different characters who have powers, so to say, but their powers are not seen as a good thing. This is essentially like a horror-inflected thing. every single one of them, something horrific happened to them, which led to them having these powers. And the powers are not particularly like great. Hey, look, I can fly. The powers are, in the most part, horrific. So, so you have like Brendan Fraser, because this is one of the first things Brendan Fraser did when he was coming back into acting. He plays a racing car driver called Cliff Steele, who through many different things ends up being a brain inside a robot. So he's you have Matt Bomer, who plays like a fighter pilot in the 40s 50s in America, who because it's Matt Bomer, and I think Matt Bomer went through a period of being a heartthrob and everything like that, and I think where he wasn't really allowed, it wasn't encouraged that he let everybody know he was gay. So when he was in shows like, White Collar and everything, people were just kind of like, ooh, who is that guy? He could be James Bond and everything like that. But now I think everything that he does, he is trying very much to sort of like bring that to the fore. So he plays a character who is closeted in the 50s, who is closeted in the 50s. He has a wife and 2 kids, but it's all about, he ends up having this sort of negative spirit that enters him, and it's about what happens. And as you go through it, like in the sort of like that, you have Diane Guerrero, who plays a character who has 64 different personalities, and each one of the personalities has their own power. You have April Bowlby, who plays she was a 50s actress who ended up having an accident, and she every now and then she sort of like dissolves into like a blob of mess and just sort of walks around. And so you have this thing with her where she is because April Bowlby does look like a 50s star. Like if you wanted to talk about your Barbara Stanwycks and stuff, like April Bowlby looks like that. But every now and then, because you have this woman who's so concerned about her appearances, and her power, so to say, is that every now and then when she gets emotionally heightened, she dissolves into a blob. into like, and I'm thinking, like the 1950s movie, a blob, it just goes around, swallowing things up, and she has to eat like 5 chickens a day and stuff like that. And you have got Timothy Dalton playing the Professor X character. I mean, honestly, this show, I don't understand how this show was so quiet for so long. Well, over here, I mean, it has but this is a show that I would recommend. Essentially, it lets you know it's not your regular comic book show, because within 5 minutes you see somebody's bare bum like going up and down. You hear the F-bomb liberally being used. The F-bomb is liberally used throughout this thing. These characters, they keep talking about the fact that how they are not actually a superhero team. They are just clueless, and they're just trying to figure out what's going on. And the plot, beside the point, the plot is just an excuse to have these characters bounce off each other. And it is glorious. This show is glorious, and I can't believe that more people weren't talking about it. And I can't believe that it's taken up till now, 5 years after the first show of the thing, for ITVX to come and take it and put it on there. I would go watch Doom Patrol. Doom Patrol is so much fun. It's so much fun. Yes, Oscar thing. No, Doom Patrol is so much fun. I'll give it a 4 out of 5. For that, this is for season 1. I've started watching season 2. I think that it is honestly one of the best superhero adaptations in the last 5 years. It is so well done. I mean, and essentially, I'll tell you how it's so well done that it gives you the feeling that the executives weren't really watching when they made this show. That nobody in charge was actually supervising them and watching them while they made the show. So they were kind of like, okay, we're just going to do this and see if they let us get away with it. And then, oh, look, we got away with it. And afterwards, people were like, what did you do? Because they do things to characters that, you can't imagine that if this was a tentpole thing, they wouldn't let them do. But it's like nobody was watching while they were making this show, and it is brilliant and it is glorious. And watch it, if nothing else, for Alan Tudyk. Oh God!
I love him. He makes me so happy.
I just forgot. I mean, where else are you going to find a show in which you have a fire and brimstone preaching cockroach? A fire and brimstone preaching cockroach, voiced by Curtis Armstrong. It is brilliant. All right. There is a rat, like a literal rat, who never speaks English, just squeaks with subtitles, who is out for revenge for the death of his mother.
I need to see this.
I think we might be having to check this out now.
No, honestly,
Yes.
honestly, no, Doom Patrol. Go watch it. 4 out of 5. Love it. So all that's left to say is, who do you think has won this week, Netflix or cinema?
Oh.
Cinema.
I think it might be a tie.
Okay, so Sharon says cinema, which is a safe bet to say, because I mean it is January and cinema is bringing out all the big guns. And yeah, and Holly says it might be a tie. Okay, I'll let you know that. Okay, Holly, you are not right, but there is only 0.3 of a star in it on average.
I was going to say, I thought it was close either way.
Yeah, Sharon is right. We had a 3, a 4, and a 4 in cinema. We had a 3, and a 4 in on streaming. So today, this week, it is cinema. But quite frankly, I think if you're going to ask the question of where should you have gone this week, either one of them is good. I think go see anything that. Yeah, but honestly, for me, the pick of the thing I've seen this week is Doom Patrol. Doom Patrol season 1. Go, just watch it and revel in the madness, in the absolute madness
the
of this
Harlan
show.
Corbin that I'm watching now.
Yeah, that's what I've. All right, cool. So that's it. Until next week, where we will continue going through our backlog until the inevitable slowdown in cinema, where they stop releasing movies, happens. It's a goodbye from me.
It's a goodbye for me.
And goodbye from me.
Thank you very much for joining us.